I have heard so much about this grand celebration, and I'm so grateful to be here to celebrate it with you and to celebrate you. This is a time of a season of gratitude. And so it's wonderful to be able to give thanks for being here together this morning, for coming out here to share this time with you, for getting through all that we got through for the last year and a half. Still, you stayed together as a community and you encouraged each other and you held each other's hands all the way to this day. And we give gratitude for that. And there's a phrase that my wife Christy always says when she's praying or when she's talking about us. She says, that we are God's greatest gift to itself. And so, even more so, we give thanks and we give gratitude for that this morning. And so, what I want to do this morning is I want to just encourage you in spirit and just highlight all the ways that you are powerful beings in the world. You guys are a light. And I love Sunday mornings because I love it when spirit-filled people get together to lift each other up. There's nothing quite like that. And we're together here in this room and we're together online. When I first wrote this talk, I wrote it back in, it was for a New Year's Eve service of 2020. And it was exciting to me because I was looking forward for so long to 2020. What was it going to be like? What was I going to look like? Where was I going to be? Because in 1983, the movie Blade Runner came out, and it took place as 2019 rolled into 2020. And I was like, is the world really going to look like that? Right? Are we going to have like Android friends and flying cars? Will I finally meet Harrison Ford? Right? But so I really did wonder, where will I live? What will I be doing for a living? What will I look like in 2020 when everything rolls around? And so I wrote this talk. I was so excited to give it. It was called Strong and Courageous. And I had no idea how strong and courageous I was going to have to be as 2020 rolled on, when March hit and everything, my whole tour canceled and I had to go home and everything shut down. So a lot of you are familiar with some of these scriptures. Romans 8:28, all things work together for our good. Romans 8:31, if God is for us, who could be against us? But my favorite, when it comes to encouraging myself or when it comes to encouraging others, is Joshua 1:9. And Joshua 1:9 says, be strong and courageous. Don't be discouraged, because wherever you are, God is. And that's what our affirmation is based on this morning. Our affirmation, if you'll repeat it with me, is I am strong and courageous. Wherever I am, God is. And so this morning, I have a story to share with you. And I found this story on the Smithsonian. And I love the way this story illustrates exactly what I'm talking about. And the story is about Charles Blondon. He was the first man to cross Niagara Falls on a tightrope. And it takes place in the 1800s, and I love the 1800s. Aside from some sketchy food safety practices and some questionable hygiene practices back then, I think that 1800s are so interesting because so much was happening back then. The light bulb, the electric motor, motion pictures, cars, all of that was being developed in the late 1800s. And the other thing that was happening back then was P.T. Barnum was traveling across the country with his circus and all of these, these circus acts that he had. And people were really looking for some outrageous entertainment back then. And one of those people was a man named Charles Blondon. He was an acrobat in France, and he decided he wanted to be the first man to cross Niagara Falls on a tightrope. And let me just tell you the way that works today if you wanted to cross Niagara Falls on a tightrope, okay? Because I did it last week. No, I did. But the way it works is if you were to do it today, you would take a metal cable, and one side would be on one side of the United States, on that side of the falls, and it would stretch clear across to the other side in Canada. And it would be taut. It would not move at all. And so as you started to cross, if anything were to happen at that point, if it got a little windy or sketchy and you were scared, you had this clip, and you would clip yourself to the cable and you would just sit down until a helicopter comes and picks you up. That's how it works today. But back then, in 1858, when Charles Blondon wanted to do it, first of all, there were no helicopters. But they had this hemp rope. And being from Colorado, I love that it's made of hemp. But, but you would put one side on the American side, you'd put the other side on the Canadian side. And then there would be these other little ropes that would kind of come in toward the center of it. And those were called guy ropes. They would try to hold the cable steady as you walked across. And that would work until you got to the middle of it. In that middle 50 feet, there was no way to get these guy ropes to the center. So for 50 feet, you were kind of on your own. And and I was trying to walk that tightrope, and I broke my microphone. So I did. That's right. That's right. Okay, so Charles Blondin in 1858, he decides he's going to walk across Niagara Falls. 25,000 people gather to watch him do this feat. And the reason is because nobody thought he could do it. And so they wanted to watch him fall to his death. Just really great people back then. And so all he has is the hemp rope, that stick, and that awesome outfit. And he starts to make his way across. And he makes it over to Canada and back. And he is a sensation. People are just like, wow, he's a celebrity at that point. And so he does this stunt over and over again, but every time he does it differently. So he'll get out there, he'll get to the middle, he'll do a somersault and then come back. He'll get out there, and at one time he pulled up the rope alongside and he had a bottle of wine. He had a drink in the middle of the or he would have a steak dinner. One time, he gets to the center and he took a picture. And it's not like it is today, where you get to the center and you pull out your iPhone and you just take a picture of yourself. In 1858, cameras were on a tripod, and you had that little curtain. And so he had all of that on the rope with him, and he took a picture. He was such a celebrity back then. Well, one day, he goes to Canada. And he comes back pushing a wheelbarrow. And he gets to the American side and he says, who here believes that I can push somebody in this wheelbarrow over to Canada and back? And everybody's like, yeah, we believe it. We believe you could do anything. You're the amazing Charles Blondin. And he says, who's getting in? And it's crickets. So one guy decides that he's going to get in. And that's Harry Colcord. That's his manager. And I can just imagine what this conversation was like on the way to the gig, right? It's like, listen, Harry, if I ask who's getting in this wheelbarrow and nobody says yes, you need to do it. You can't just leave me hanging. So Harry decides he's going to do this stunt with him. And the day comes, and Harry gets into position to go across Niagara Falls. But he decides that he's not going to get in the wheelbarrow. He's actually going to get on Charles's back. And so there they are, walking across Niagara Falls. Now, what happens is, eventually, they get to this middle 50 feet where they're on their own. And so they're in the center. And Charles says, Harry, stop screaming. I'm just kidding. He doesn't say that. I just imagine that at some point, I mean, I would have been screaming. I would have been screaming probably from the car. But what he says is, Harry, look up. From here on out, you and I are one mind, one body, and one soul. When I breathe, you breathe. When I move, you move. If I sway, you sway. There's no more Harry and Charles. You and I at this point are one all the way to the end. And they make it. They make it. And Charles ends up doing that stunt another 300 times or so until he finally retires in his 70s. Harry never does it again. I think he was good at that point. He's like, we made our point. Great. I'm just going to go back to being your manager. But what I love about that story is I believe that is the way Spirit speaks to us when we are going through a challenging time, when we have to cross our Niagara Falls. And that could look like challenges that are so heavy and hard. It could be grief. Something that is so difficult that we don't know how we're ever going to get through it or if we're going to get through it. It can look like a challenge at work or in our family. We're like, man, this is hard. I need help. And sometimes it's not even that it's a big dramatic thing. Sometimes we have this amazing idea. We're going to open up a new center. We're going to bring a new community together. Or we just have some kind of amazing invention that we have in mind. And it seems like such an enormous undertaking. We don't know how we're going to start it or how it's going to come together. Here is what God doesn't say. God doesn't say, hop on my back. I'm going to carry you and your fear, and I'm going to take you all the way to the other side and drop you off. That single set of footprints in the sand that we hear about, that's not God carrying you and your smallness. Those are your footsteps. When we are crossing our Niagara Falls, God says, look up. You and I are one mind, one body, and one soul. When I breathe, you breathe. When I move, you move. What I know, you know. There is no separate you and me. We are one all the way to the end. And I learned a big lesson around that about 6 years ago. And there was a lot that was happening. One of them was I had at that time a full-time job. I was a software developer for 20 years. And I was also a traveling professional musician. And at that point in my career, both had become so busy that I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do them both and do them both well. So I had to let one of them go. And I knew that at that age, I was 47 at the time. At that age, if I left technology and music wasn't working out, I wasn't going to be able to get back in. It was all or nothing. So I knew that I was called to do this, to write music, to lift people up in these spiritual communities. And I wanted it so bad. I just wanted to devote my life to that. And so I was going to let software go. But what was also happening at that time was my wife, Christy, and I were really new in our relationship. And we decided that we were going to move to Colorado together and start our life. And we decided to buy a house. And at the same time, my daughter was graduating from high school and was about to start college. And she was going to have to leave her childhood home and live on her own for the first time ever. And there were a lot of nights wondering if I was making the right decision because I was trying to make so many decisions. And I was trying to make sure that they were all going to work out for the best for everyone. A lot of stress and a lot of worry. And what I can tell you is whenever we are swirling around in the weeds, God is never in the weeds. God has it all in control. When I breathe, you breathe. What I know, you know. So whenever I start to feel a little unsure, or I start to worry, or I have these big ideas, or I have these big stresses, I can pull out the photos of, if we can go to the next slide. I pull out the picture of Christy and I on my last day of work at Disneyland. Or I pull out the picture of our house on closing day in Colorado. Or I can pull out the video when Christy and I had a party and we invited all of our California friends to meet all of our Colorado friends, and they had no idea that they were walking into a wedding reception. And it was so fun. And the thing about these photos is in every one of those scenes, God is there, smiling, thumbs up, saying, I told you we would get there. One mind, one body, one spirit, all the way to the end. And so what I want to do right now, as I wrap up this message, is I want to go right into meditation. And I want to invite you to close your eyes, and we're going to say our affirmation one more time again. I am strong and courageous. Wherever I am, God is. Let's say that one more time. I am strong and courageous. Wherever I am, God is. I have music or meditation. And right now, I just want you to find a comfortable spot in your chair. And take a deep breath. and release it. Take a deep breath and release it. I just want you to feel supported right now by that chair beneath you, by that floor beneath your feet, by these four walls that surround you. Feel supported by the sound of my voice that knows only good for you. And as you breathe, take a moment to listen to that voice of spirit speaking words of love to you, reminding you that you are strong, that you and spirit are one, encouraging you. And as you reflect on this affirmation, I am strong and courageous wherever I am, God is. I want you to hold in your heart the name of someone who could use those words. And in your heart, say their name. You are strong and courageous. Wherever you are, God is. Know that for them. And I just want you to invite you to think back to a time when you had to be strong. Think back to a time when you needed to summon all of the courage that you had. You had to be brave. When you had to be someone's rock. And the purpose of that is not to spend time in hard places. The purpose of it is to witness your strength, to remind yourself that you are strong. You have courage. You can figure things out. You. And as you start to roll through all of those memories, or as you start to put your attention on that one memory, imagine yourself taking a snapshot of it. You have these pictures, these snapshots, or maybe you hold it as a video. And picture yourself taking those and putting them in your pocket. And anytime you need to be reminded that you need to be bolstered in some way of how strong you are, you can refer back to your own pictures of when you were strong, brave, when you were someone's rock. We're going to spend just a few minutes in the silence. You are never alone. You are never stuck. The answers are always there. You are strong and courageous. And right now, I'm going to invite Reverend Jill to come up, and she's going to lead us out of meditation with prayer.
And as we continue in this beautiful, beautiful space that Denise has so perfectly set for us this morning, we recognize in this moment God. For God is all that there is. There's one power, there's one presence, there is one life. And we know that to be God. We know it to be the still place within us. We know it to be life surrounding us. We know it as our heartbeat. We know God is love. And so as we know God, we know that all of it is here now present in, through, and as each one of us, as expressions of it, uniquely made manifest right here and now, as expressions, as leading edge consciousness, as the hands and feet of the divine, as the divine expresses through each of us as our lives. And so knowing this unity of those of us gathered here together today in room, online, or later, we recognize that wholeness, the oneness, the allness that we are. And I speak my word for us this day, claiming, knowing that grounded place, that centered place of courage, of strength that we are. As we recognize that no matter what our challenge may be, God's got this. God's got us. And we are all right here together. We are surrounded by infinite love. We are supported by infinite strength. And we have courage we're not even aware of. And so as we celebrate this day and this occasion and this community and each other, we lift our hearts in gladness. We lift our hearts in joy. We lift our hearts in gratitude for all that we've experienced here, from our beautiful music, our beautiful guest speaker, and for all who have connected in community this day, recognizing that oneness that we are. And I know for anyone that has anything on their heart this day that they are holding, that they would seek prayer around, as they hold that, we lift that into the consciousness of this prayer, and this community surrounds them in love and joy and peace. And we know the perfect right manifestation of life through them as them now, that whatever needs to be revealed is revealed, whatever needs healing, that healing is revealed. And we know divine right order and divine right action, peace, prosperity, love. It is all right here for us. We accept it now. We claim it now. And it is with a grateful heart, with great joy and thanksgiving, filled to overflowing for this day, its celebration, the life within us, the love within us, the courage and the strength that we are, that I just gratefully release this into the action and activity of the law, knowing that God's got this center in each and every one of us in each and every moment. We are so blessed as we affirm and accept this together by saying, and so it is.